FPL should be an exceptionally easy game to do well in. All you need to do is pick the players that score good points. So if there's a player or maybe two that you have very good reason to think they're going to do very well, you should absolutely have them in your team. The trouble is players don't always do what we expect. And within the FPL community, there's a huge echo chamber where people, the whole community keeps talking about the same players and hyping them up. So they try and get you to buy them. Their overall ownership's not very high and nothing happens. And the next week they get forgotten about and there's some new player that gets hyped up. So these low-owned players, even if they do well, you really don't need to worry about. The players you need to consider are the ones that are highly owned around your rank, because these are the ones that are going to hurt you if you don't own them. So in this video, I'm going to consider the players that are highly owned around my rank, and hopefully around your rank it won't be an awful lot different. And you don't need to get the highly owned players, but if you don't have a player that's highly owned, you kind of need to have a good reason not to have them, because you've only got to get one or two of these wrong, and if they do well, you're going to be in a whole lot of pain. So looking at ownership levels around my rank, which is around 725,000 at the moment, Haaland is effectively 100% owned. The only reason not to go with Haaland is if you've got a particular strategy where you're having fun not having him, or maybe you're in a league with people at work where you've agreed, for example, no Salah, no Haaland. But apart from that, you really have to have Haaland. And then around 90% owned is Semenyo. So if you don't own him and he does well, he's going to massively hurt your rank. Just below 70% João Pedro, he's dropping 7.5 million. He's coming up to a very good run of fixtures, and I know he's not done well recently and managers are selling him, but purely from a maths point of view, that is a bad idea because he could seriously hurt your rank if you don't have him. The next highest two are actually defenders now, which is Gabriel, who's been doing very well, and Senesi. And then the last one, just over 50%, is Reinders, and he's dropping, but he's cheap. He's only 5.7 and he's still highly owned. Now, I've seen online a lot of managers saying they're probably going to bench in this game week because they've got other players they want to play. I think that's a mistake, because if he does well, even if it's just 5 or 7 points, it's going to hurt their rank because he's highly owned. Now, if we knew there was a player who had a good reason to think a highly owned player wasn't going to do well, it's fine to bench them. But apart from that, the way to play it safe is to go for these players. So all of those players, if you can have them, that's great. Personally, I wouldn't be selling any of those under any circumstances this game week. If I was wildcarding, possibly I wouldn't bring in Reinders because he's dropping in popularity. On the other hand, I would be fine to have him and he's a safe pick. And then between 40 and 50%, there are two players. The first one's Kudos, around 44%. He is a very good player. And I'm aware Spurs are coming up to maybe a difficult run of fixtures, but he's still exceptionally good. He's only 6.8 million, and he's going to hurt people's rank if they don't have him and he does well. And then we have Van de Ven. So, okay, he's not been maybe quite as well, but between Van de Ven and Kudos last game week, there should have been a goal and assist, except it was hopelessly offside. So, okay, it shouldn't have been. But they're showing that they can still get the points. So those two, they're being sold. You don't have to get them if you're wildcarding. Personally, if I had them, I wouldn't be selling them at the moment. And then the highest goalkeeper by far at the moment is Rare, 36%. He's going to hurt your rank if he does well, but he's not going to do well. The chances are he's going to get 6 points or 2. He doesn't make many saves because the defence is so good. So he's a bit of a strange one because it's worth having 3 Arsenal players, but going for Raya for one of them takes up one of your Arsenal slots and he's only going to get 6 points. So personally, I don't think it's worth it. The next highest keeper is all the way down here, which is Pope at 14%. So what that means is, as long as you've got a playing keeper, you don't need to worry about it too much. The ones you haven't got shouldn't hurt your rank, unless you've got a hopeless keeper like Sales from Forest, who just isn't keeping any clean sheets. And then we have Mark Gahey away to Arsenal this game week. So he's a fine one to bench this game week, but most game weeks you wouldn't bench him. And if you are playing him, that's absolutely fine. And then just below 30%, we've got Goalkeepers. He's falling in popularity because he's not done much recently, but He got 2 goals in the Champions League last night, so I expect the number of managers selling him is going to go down, and maybe a few will pick him up on a wild card. The reason not to is a lot of managers are going for 2 Arsenal defence and Saka, and there are other good strikers that are worth having. And then just below him is Voltermaid, who's on the way up for Newcastle. He's very popular at 26, and Saka, the midfielder, he's at 24%, but again, he is on the rise. Now we have a yellow dot up here. He's up high because he's expensive, but his popularity is only 12% and it's going down. Salah historically has been a good player, and I did see the game on Match of the Day, and he was pretty good. He could have got 2 assists, except Gakpo hit the woodwork with both of them, and he had a very good chance of getting a goal. I think it's completely feasible Salah does well over the coming game weeks. However, he's very expensive and so low owned, we don't need to fear him. So there's no way I'd be buying Salah at the moment. If I had him, I'd be comfortable selling him. But maybe that's just me. But he's absolutely nobody to worry about. Now going to look at the players, starting with the goalkeepers. And as long as you don't have a complete duffer, it doesn't matter too much which keeper you've got. Obviously, if you're wildcarding, choose carefully. But if you're not about to wildcard and you've got any keeper, basically, you're all right. So Raya is the most popular at the moment, and his popularity is growing. His net transfers in, as of this morning when I got the data, so Wednesday morning, is up by 40,000. So it is going to increase. He is a good keeper in that he's solid pick. He's often going to be getting 6 points. The only reason to not get him, in my mind, is he takes up an Arsenal slot. If you've got him, that's fine. If you want to get him, that's fine. He wouldn't be my first choice at the moment, though. The keeper I've got and I'm comfortable with is Nick Pope. He's also slightly on the increased net of 31,000. But neither of these are going to hurt your rank massively. So using Solio Analytics numbers, expected points, if you don't have Raya, he's going to get you minus 1.5 this week. If you don't have Pope, he's going to get you minus 0.6. So as you'll see with players later on, the keepers, I know I keep saying it, really doesn't matter. Just have a keeper that plays. And then Sanchez. Chelsea have some nice fixtures coming up. I'd be perfectly comfortable if I had Chelsea keeper. And I've seen online some managers are thinking on their wild card they're going to get him. So any of these 3 are fine to get on a wild card. Vicario's dropping in popularity. Net 41,000 out as of time of recording. He's a strange one. Some games he looks like a really, really good keeper. And other games he does something a bit silly and he concedes a goal. So personally, I can't see a circumstance where I'd get Vicario, but it may be in X game week's time he's going to be all right. If you've got him, I'd say keep him though. So Petrovic, he's the best or most influential 4.5 million keeper. Personally, I wouldn't buy him, but if he's who you've got, he's all right. He's pretty steady. He's net down by 1,000 transfers. Donnarumma's up by 41,000 net transfers. I would much rather go for him than Raya. They're both 5.7 million. But I can't see me choosing 3 other Man City players. Obviously, I'd want Haaland. You could get Donnarumma. Then you could get another Man City player if you wanted to. So he's a safe pick. Probably won't get as many clean sheets as Raya, but he'd get enough to make him maybe worthwhile. And then Pickford, he's down by 14,000 net transfers. Quite expensive at 5.5 million, but he's a lot of fun. If you've got him, that's fine. Dubravka is a banker. You have to have him. He's a playing keeper. He's only 4 million, and nearly all the games he's going to sit on your bench. But when you eventually bench boost, that should be at least 2 points you get from him. His popularity's gone up by a net of 23,000 this game week. Obviously, don't use a transfer to bring him in, but if you're wildcarding, make sure you got him. And then Roos of Sunderland, he's been very good. He's up by 38,000, 4.6 million. He's kind of worth having. He's a lot of fun. But he's very lowly owned, so you absolutely don't need to fear him. But he is probably the best cheap keeper, I would say. And then Kelleher, 4.5 million. If he's your keeper, okay, I wouldn't waste a transfer moving him on. Unless you got 3 or 4, 5 free transfers, then you might. I wouldn't get him on a wild card. He's just someone who will sometimes get you a few points. Now, you may be wondering, what's my formula for choosing the players that I'm showing you? It's as simple as, if their ownership is 10% or higher at my rank, I'm showing them. If they've had more than 100,000 transfers in this game week so far, I'm showing them because people are interested in them. And apart from that, each position, I want to show at least 10. So there's only 4 keepers on this page that meet my initial criteria. That's Raya, Pope, Sanchez, Vicario. From Petrovic and beyond, none of these are 10% owned at my rank. None of them have had 100,000 transfers in, but I wanted to show them all. Okay, Dubravka, he is higher owned, but he's always going to be benched. So I guess there's 5 with Dubravka. And now the defenders, Gabriel is by far the most important defender in the game at the moment. He's had net transfers of nearly 250,000 so far this game week. He is a good defender. If you don't have him, it is going to hurt your rank. If you've got 1 free transfer and nothing else to do, and you don't own him, and you can bring him in, I think you should bring him in. Now, people do talk about, can you get player B to cover player A? For example, could you get Timber or Calafiori to cover Gabriel? I don't think that's a sensible approach. If Gabriel's the player that's the good player, you don't get someone else to cover him. You get the good player. Because in the game weeks that Gabriel outscores the other players you've got to cover him, it's still going to be hurting your rank. So Gabriel's one of those players. If you can get, you should get him. I mean, he's moderately highly owned. He's absolutely worth having. The next highest is Senesi, and he's ticking along nicely. So if you can get him, you should. Even though he's up to 5 million now, he is still worth getting. Net transfers in the 51,000 this game week. And they're home to Forest. So reasonable chance of a clean sheet there. Forest have got a new manager. It will be interesting to see how that goes. So Van de Ven, he's been dumped by net of 114,000 managers. They have difficult fixtures coming up. Everton away is not too bad this game week. Then they've got Chelsea, United and Arsenal. So Tottenham players are going to be getting dumped. If you've got him, you absolutely don't need to be getting rid of him, in my opinion. If you're wildcarding, you don't need to get him because his popularity is going to be going down. So you're slightly exposed this game week, but over the next 3 or 4, you'll probably be okay, and you should be able to pick 5 other defenders easily. But if you've got him, I'd suggest at least for now, hold him. Obviously, you can do what you want. This is just my opinion. Timber, very good. He's been brought in by net of 99,000. Good player. His minutes seem to be less secure than Gabriel, but perfectly fine to have. And if your 3 Arsenal players includes Gabriel and Timber, that's absolutely fine. But he's going to do a lot less damage than Gabriel if you don't own him. If you can only have one of those, Gabriel's the one to go for at the moment. The Mark Gahey, his popularity is up by 25,000, but he's away to Arsenal this game week. So if you're wildcarding, he's fine to get. If you've got him, he's absolutely fine to keep. Apart from that, I wouldn't be getting him in this game week. Next game week would be the time to get him, where he's facing Brentford, then Brighton, then Wolves. So Virgil van Dijk, he's been dumped by net 77,000 so far. One of the issues with Liverpool, apart from them not keeping many clean sheets, is of course that Alisson's injured, their main goalkeeper. So he is going to be slightly worse, and he's 6 million. And personally, at the moment, I'd rather have any of the other 5 shown on the screen than Virgil van Dijk. Now, if I had him, and I only had 1 or 2 free transfers, I wouldn't be bothering to move him on. But if you had more transfers, it's fine to move him on. If you're wildcarding, personally, I absolutely would not get him. Cucurella has been brought in with net 41,000 managers. He is a good player for the upcoming game weeks. Good chance of attack and return. Might get some clean sheets. Perfectly fine. If you don't own him, he's not really going to be hurting your rank. You don't need to fear him. The only defenders you need to kind of fear are the top row on this page at the moment. So if you've got him, that's great. If you're wildcarding, you want him, that's great. I wouldn't be bringing him in. I wouldn't be swapping Virgil van Dijk for him personally, but he's a perfectly good player. He's good chance of outscoring Virgil in the next few game weeks. So Muniz is a very nice attacking defender, absolutely worth having. His ownership's still low enough it's not going to hurt you. I've said that he's good soon simply because he's away to Arsenal. So there's a reasonable chance of not getting a clean sheet. Arsenal have got the best defence, so there's a reasonable chance of no attacking return. If you're wildcarding, absolutely fine to get Muniz. If you want to bring him in because it helps you somewhere else, it's fine to get him in. And from next game week, he's probably going to be a very good choice. He's been brought in so far by 50,000 net managers. And then Tarkowski, he's down slightly. Nothing wrong with him. He should be getting defensive contributions. But 5.5 million, there may be some cheaper options you want. And Branthwaite, we found out, is going to be out for maybe a couple of months. so Everton's chances of keeping clean sheets have been slightly deflated. Second page of defenders, none of these are going to hurt you. Their ownership is too low. However, they do meet my criteria, so I'm going to go through them. Pedro Porro, good player. It'd be nice if he was higher owned because he would be a nice one to own. But Spurs can let in goals. Their upcoming fixtures aren't great. If you've got him, he's all right to move on. There's no way I'd get him or any of the other players on this page on a wild card. But you can if you want. You play it your way. So there's no issues with Pedro Porro, but he's not going to hurt you. Calafiore's good. If you want him for one of your 3 Arsenal slots, that's fine. Some people will be going Calafiore, Timber and Gabriel. If that's the way you want to play, that's fine. When there's a clean sheet, you'll get lots of points. On the occasions they concede a goal, your defence won't be so good that game week probably, unless they score. Burn, so he's fine. The issue for me, like if I was wildcarding, I wouldn't get Burn because I'd get Pope. And I wouldn't want 2 Newcastle boys at the back. But if you've got Burn, that's all right. Richards, nice and cheap, 4.5 million. He's fine to get on a wild card. They're away to Arsenal this game week, so I wouldn't be getting him personally this game week. And he's pretty flat. He's just down 3,000 net transfers so far. Rodon's bench fodder, he's down 9,000. So James, he's had 90 minutes the last 4 game weeks, got 18 points last game. If we knew he was staying fit, he would be one of the most popular defenders. Everyone would have him basically. The issue with James is he has a tendency of getting injured and being out for a while. So if you've got lots of transfers and you like taking a risk, James is a good pick. Nice fixtures coming up and he's attacking. You just need to be prepared for the eventuality that in 1 or 2 game week times he's injured and you're spending another transfer getting rid of him. If it wasn't for the fitness though, he would be a very, very good player to have. Goodmanson, bench fodder, he's fine. Electric Steve's bench fodder. Anderson, he was very popular early on because of his DEFCON and how it would have been last game week, but his popularity's been going down, and I think he was flagged last game week. I think he might have even missed it. He's been sold by a net of 27,000. So on this page, it's James that's been brought in the most by 151,000 managers so far this game week. That's net, so a few would have sold. So he's a fun player, and I hope he makes it into the first page and then maybe the top rank, but I don't suppose he will. For the midfielders, Semenyo is by far the most important midfielder. Absolutely worth having. If you're wildcarding, definitely get him. If you've got a free transfer, don't know what to do, and you can bring him in and you've not got him, the safe thing to do is to bring him in. Obviously, he could get nothing against Forest. It could happen. Then he's away to Man City and Villa, so they could also be blanks. But because he's 90% owned around my rank, if he does well and I didn't own him, that is going to really affect my rank negatively. So Reinders, he's been sold so far net of 163,000. He's still popular enough to hurt your rank if you don't own him and he does well. Man City fixtures are okay. His minutes, he's not had 90 minutes for about 3 game weeks now though. So that's a bit of a concern. He's only 5.7 million. I suspect in the next 2 or 3 game weeks, if he doesn't return, his ownership's going to be maybe below 20% and he's going to be very safe to get rid of. But he is a good player and in my mind he's worth keeping hold of. Kudos is a good player. He's actually been net brought in by 20,000. He's fine to have. Now, neither Kudos nor Rangers are going to hurt you if you don't own them anywhere near as much as Semenyo, but they will hurt you a bit. Personally, I wouldn't get rid of Kudos or Rangers at the moment if I owned him. I do own both of them. Yeah, I really just... Unless you had a really good reason to get rid of them. Now, it might be in 2 or 3 game weeks times, their ownership's much lower, you can get rid of them. But at the moment, I wouldn't be doing that. Saka, he's been brought in by 200,000 net so far this game week. He's a good player. Sea of green fixtures coming up. His popularity, unless something crazy happens, should go up, and another 2 or 3 game weeks he could well be 40-50% around my rank. Absolutely worth having if you can get him. And Dyer, so he's a very good player. He plays for Everton, but he could get points in any games. The occasional DEFCON, sometimes goals, sometimes assists, penalties. He's been brought in by a net of 54,000. If the midfield on the page at the moment were the 5 midfielders you played every game week, that is a pretty safe midfield to have. Of course, it's difficult to have all the players you want to have. If you've got Ndiaye, very good player, worth having. Fernandes, also a good player, but he's 8.9 million, which is quite expensive. The fixtures are fine. Brighton, Forest, Spurs, Everton, they're fine. But at 8.9, he might be difficult to afford. But if you can afford him and you want him, that's fine. He could well get some good points. Grealish, perfectly good player. He was sold a lot last game week because they're away to Man City and he couldn't play. He's now been brought in by 34,000. He's fine to get. His ownership's not massively high. And if you want an Everton midfielder, Ndiaye's 0.4 cheaper and Ndiaye's more popular, Ndiaye would be the one to have. But Grealish is fine. Personally, I know Salah's not been getting points recently. I think he could be doing well in the next few game weeks. But he was brought off early. There is a minute's risk. There is no realistic scenario where I'd bring in Salah. If I had Salah, I'd be very comfortable selling him, even though I think he's going to do well, because he's not worth 14.4 million and he's now quite lowly owned. There are other midfielders that are going to be hurting me if I don't own them, and they're probably going to do well. So if you had Salah and not Saka, that is an easy switch, for example. Gakpo, his popularity is going up. Salah's been net sold by 385,000. Gakpo's gone up by 113,000. Now, Gakpo's a bit of a funny one as far as I'm concerned, in that he does get 7 points sometimes it's only 2 points. Gakpo's fine, possibly the best Liverpool attacker, but there are just other midfielders I'd rather own. But if you've got Gakpo, he's fine to have. If I was wildcarding, I wouldn't be bringing him in though. I'd be going for something like the top row on here. Second page of midfielders. None of these are going to hurt your rank. You don't need to fit any of them in this upcoming game week. Mbeumo, very good player. Absolutely worth having. Unless you care about ownership, in which case he's not going to hurt you. But if you're wildcarding, you want to bring him in, that's fine. Or just a natural transfer, that's fine. If you're torn between him and Fernandes, personally, I'd probably go Mbeumo just to save the money, because I might want the money elsewhere. But he's fine to have. Caicedo, net transfers in of 137,000. There was a lot of hype about him last game week, and then he spent the first half on the bench just because he was tired, I think, from international duty. He's fine, 5.9, but he's not massively owned. If you're going for a Chelsea midfielder, you particularly wanted one, he's probably the one to get because he's the cheapest, and they're pretty much of a muchness, and we don't know which one's going to do best. So, partly popular because Chelsea got a good run of fixtures, partly popular because he's been scoring very well, and partly popular because he's only 5.9. So Eze's a good player, but he takes up an Arsenal slot, and there's several Arsenal players I'd rather own before Eze. If you've got him, that's fine. If you want to bring him in, that's fine, but you're risking minutes there. He's not for me. He's been transferred out by 39,000 so far. So Sarr is a good player, net transferred in of 21,000. I've marked him as good soon because they're away to Arsenal this game week. More likely than not, he's not going to get an attacking return. But after that, the fixtures are much nicer and he is a very good player, so his popularity will grow. Rice, if I had to have Rice or Eze, I would definitely go Rice. He's $1 million cheaper. I prefer him. I think he's more reliable for getting consistent points. He's much better for minutes. I'm fine with Rice. If I didn't care about effective ownership, I may well have Rice in my team anyway. Enzo. So he's a very good player. Next few game weeks should do well, but net transfers out of 139,000 so far this game week. He's currently flagged as I think he's 75% chance of playing. If he does play, he is a good player, but his ownership is low enough that if you don't own him, you really don't need to worry about him doing well. So Neto, he's net transfers in of 99,000. That'll be on the back of him getting a goal and assist last game week. But his minutes, we don't know what his minutes are going to be. And there will be times he's probably going to be getting not enough minutes to do any damage. And he's 7 million. If you want a Chelsea midfielder, save 1.1 million and go for Caicedo. That'd be what I'm saying. Obviously, he's fine to get. You obviously, of your team, you do whatever you like. I'm just pointing out he's not going to hurt your rank. Forwards, Haaland. Even though everyone owns him, effectively, he's had net transfers in of 271,000 so far this game week. The only reason not to own him is if you're playing your own little game where you're trying to play without Haaland, which is completely legitimate and fun to do. Apart from that, really should try to have him because he's going to decimate your rank if he does well, and he has been doing very well this season so far. So João Pedro is the next one that's going to hurt you the most after Haaland. He's been sold by over $250,000 so far. But Chelsea are coming up to a nice run of fixtures. Sunderland, Spurs, there's a nice little rivalry there. Then Wolves and Burnley. He could easily be getting a return in 3 or 4 of those fixtures. Of course, he might keep getting 2 pointers, but he could do very well. And if he does well and you don't own him, that is going to hurt your rank. If I was wildcarding, I would still be getting João Pedro because I'd be too frightened at the moment to go without him. The next most damaging forward to hurt your rank if you don't own him is Goalkeepers of Arsenal. He's been sold by 221,000 net so far, but he scored 2 goals last night in the Champions League, so I expect some managers may actually now bring him in, and there may be some managers who were planning to sell him and actually going to hold on to him. Upcoming fixtures are fine: Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, then North London derby with Spurs. Those 3 forwards on the page at the moment are the safest 3 forwards to have. They may not be the best, but they're the safest, and any of those 3 are going to hurt you a bit if they do well, but obviously particularly Haaland. So Voltamada of Newcastle have been brought in by coming up to nearly 500,000 managers so far net. Solio Analytics don't fancy him to do as well as the Goalkeepers over the next few fixtures, but he is 1.6 million cheaper. He's absolutely fine to have. I was very close to getting him on my wildcard a couple of game weeks ago, but I didn't in the end. It may be the next week or 2 he's going to be 3rd on this list, or maybe even 2nd. He's fine to have. If you're wildcarding, you want him, that's fine. You just want to bring him in, that's fine. He's not quite at the stage where he's going to be hurting if you don't own him, but he is getting that way. Mateta, he got 3 goals last game week, nearly got 4. He gets a lot of chances and he puts some of them away. He's getting massively hyped up in the echo chamber this week at the moment. They're away to Arsenal, so it's the most difficult defence, so there's a reasonable chance he's not going to get anything this game week. But from next game week, certainly assuming he's still fit, he's probably going to get brought in by a lot of managers. If you're wildcarding, it is sensible to get Mateta, but obviously you don't have to. His ownership is likely to go up quite a lot. It's already up by more than 250,000 so far this game week, even though they're away to Arsenal. So Isak, he's been dumped by nearly 100,000 so far net. He's not getting the minutes. He's not done anything yet for Liverpool. But once he starts firing on all cylinders, he might suddenly get very popular. Upcoming fixtures, certainly from game week 12, when it's Nottingham Forest. From then onward, he's very good if he gets the minutes. But there's something wrong with Liverpool at the moment. Personally, there's no scenario where I'd buy Isak at the moment. If I had him, I think I'd sell him and I'd buy any of the players that are higher than him in this list. Bowen is a good player. He's got net transfers in of 9,000. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 2 or 3 goals in the next 4 game weeks. He's got Leeds, Newcastle, Burnley, Bournemouth. However, there's no scenario where I'd buy him either because his ownership is so low, there's just nothing to fear. And again, I'd rather have any of the forwards in the top row than Bowen, but Bowen may well do well. Richarlison, he's been dumped net of 166,000 managers so far. He's not getting the minutes. Spurs games coming up aren't worth having. Definitely worth selling unless you've got something more important to do. Mark Gay, he may get some game time coming up, but he's effectively bench fodder and he's actually been taken out by 26,000. The only reason really to get rid of him is if you want a 3rd playing forward or you want 3 other Chelsea players. But apart from that, he's fine to keep and just rot on your bench. And then Ekiteke, he's on this list just because I wanted to show at least 10 players for each position. He's been net sold by 109,000. He is a good player when he's fit and he gets the minutes. If it wasn't for Isak, I'm sure he'd be a lot more popular. But people have sold him because they're frightened Isak's going to get the minutes. But Isak hasn't actually been very good. Liverpool seem to have issues at the moment. So are they going to get them sorted by game week 12 when their fixtures change? Hopefully, because it'll make for a fun league. Now going to go through the benching orders, starting with the keepers. This is just my opinion. You do whatever you like. But if you wanted a second opinion, i.e. mine, this is what I think. And I'm going to show the players in my preferred order of playing them for this game week. So it'd be Rare at home to Palace. Then it's Pope, Sanchez, Petrovic, Pickford, Vicario, Donnarumma. And then Dubravka away to Wolves. Wolves haven't been great. And I'd rather play him than Roofs away to Chelsea or Kelleher at home to Liverpool. For the other players, I've put 6 aside for captaincy talk. So apart from them, If I had Fernandes, I'd absolutely play him. He's on the list. Then it'd be also made Bowen. If I had him, I'd be playing him. Embremo, Gabriel, Senesi, Ndaya, Isak. So I don't particularly fancy Isak too much, but if I had all that money invested in him, I would play him and hope he's going to do right against Brentford. Gakpo, Kudos, Reinders, Timber, Rice, James, Cucurella, Calafroy, Virgil van Dijk. So those is expensive because they're missing Alisson at the moment. I would just rather be playing the other defenders I've shown before Virgil. He is a lot of money to be sitting on your bench, and hopefully it won't come to that. Mateta, Eze, Enzo, Caicedo, Munoz, Grealish, Neto, Sarr, Van der Ven, Tarkowski, Byrne, Gahey, Pedro Porro, Roden, Goodmanson, Electric Steve, Richards, Richarlison, Ekiteke, Mark Gahey, Anderson. Regarding captaincy, Haaland is probably going to be the most captained. He's certainly the safest to captain. I've got Haaland. I'm intending to captain him. However, if I wasn't captaining him, I'd quite possibly go for João Pedro. Home to Sunderland. Perfectly right choice. He may do well. Sunderland have been good defensively, but they've been slightly less good on the road. So you could get something there. Other choices, Semenyo at home to Forest could be good. Saka at home to Palace could be a good choice. Salah away to Brentford. But Salah, I think, is actually quite close to being quite good, despite what everyone else is saying. Or Goalkeepers, any of those would be fine captaincy choices. Any fine for vice-captain. Haaland is by far the safest. Don't go for two from the same game, just in case it gets postponed. So don't captain Saka and vice-captain Goalkeepers. If you don't want to do any of these, or you can't, any of the green forwards or midfielders on the previous page, they'd also be alright. And that's my thought for the popular players for Game Week 9. If you do alright in the Global League, you'll probably do alright in your Mini League. And to do alright in the Global League, you just need to pick the right popular players. Might sound a bit boring, but it's not actually as boring as you'd think because you've still got a lot of variables to juggle around. Thank you very much for watching. I wish you all the best for Game Week 9. Thanks. Bye.